It's Boxing Day here. I'm in Australia. I thought I would take this opportunity to make a video about what I learned during my 15 months working in the public childcare system. So I actually have 10 points that I have made. There's probably a lot more, but I have summarized the important things that really stood out to me during my time as an early childhood educator working in a public daycare. First, a little introduction. Some of you may not know who I am. My name is Leisa. I am a mother of 4 unschooled children. I've been on the unschooling path for 11 years. I've published a book about that journey called Free Flowing Family, a journey of unschooling through awakening and healing, which you can read for a very low cost on Amazon. I am a certified early childhood educator who has worked in the public childcare industry for over a year, over all the rooms with all the ages of children from 6 months to 4 years. And I'm now operating my own family daycare. I wanted to share with you that I'm passionate about creating a better system for our children through more compassion and acceptance. I believe in nurturing and supporting children to develop organically and naturally, free from our own conditioning as parents and authority figures. That's a little bit about me and why I'm here sharing today. My time working in public childcare felt very much like a prison sentence to me at times, but I'm very glad that I saw it to the end, because it has taught me and shown me that I am strong and I am capable of persevering through some of the most difficult challenges that I've ever faced. It brings me to my 10 things that I learned while working there. It's not really acknowledged in childcare. It's avoided. Children are often distracted away from this reality. But if we can just admit that this is the reality for them, they do not want to be away from their parents. If they might enjoy daycare once their parents leave, they can find enjoyment. But the reality is, if they could choose, they would either choose to have their parents stay with them at daycare all day and never leave, or they would want to stay home and not go. And they need validation for this. So while we can't always say to parents, oh, you shouldn't bring your child, or don't bring your child, or take them home with you, because this may not always be an option, the main thing is that children just need the validation. They just need someone to mirror back their reality. Somebody to say, I know you don't want to be here. I know you want your mum and dad. I know you want to go back home with them, and it's okay. I see you. I hear you. I understand you. By the way, I will go into every single one of these topics in great detail in separate videos, but this is just basically an overview of the things that stood out to me that I learned. So they may be feeling guilt deep down themselves. They may know on some level that they don't want to be away from their children either, that they don't want to go to work full time, that they want a more easy life where, they have more family time and they're not worrying about money and finances, and they can feel, they know that the constant separation from their children is difficult and it's causing issues. But they may not know what to do, or they may not even be aware of this in themselves. So I learned through judging parents and through not understanding them how to. So coming into it, being a parent who didn't work and didn't put my children into childcare, I didn't really have the understanding of what it would be like for those parents. So working there really gave me the opportunity to see for myself what happens when I treat parents this way. Oh, okay, that's not working. What happens when I treat them this way? Okay, that seems to work. And what I saw worked was just letting parents also know that their reality is real and true for them, and that it must be difficult sometimes for them, especially when they have to leave that child crying and screaming. That is not a good feeling for them. And some of them would leave crying and feeling helpless. So I learned to develop compassion and understanding for parents as well, and to validate their feelings as well. This was always a lot on their little nervous systems. This is something that I learned through observing and experiencing. Being in a room, myself and the staff who worked with me, we had the largest room in the centre. So we could sometimes get up to 24 children. I mean, that was rare, but 22, 23 was sometimes the norm for us over a week. When you have times where you're expected to all be inside, the room just never felt big enough. And I noticed that without that indoor-outdoor time where children could choose to either be in or out, and we could separate the group a little, this would cause so much chaos, and you would start to see the changes in behaviour in the children when they were all crammed together in one room. There was no space. We found that there were more incidents occurring because they couldn't get away, they couldn't exercise their boundaries, they had no space, they had nowhere to go to get away from all this energy. Children are very susceptible and very sensitive to the energies around them. They feel things a lot more than what us adults, they don't have the conditioning, the heavy layer of conditioning that can block these things out. So they absorb everything. So you put a child in a room of 5 kids, and they're only really absorbing the energy and the behaviours and of those 5 children. And you put them in a room of 22 children, and you can imagine all that information, all that sensory overload coming in. So I don't think that public childcare centres are really equipped to handle that and to accommodate those things, which is why it's important to find solutions that allow for smaller groups and different ways of managing the children so that their sensory overload is much less. It's not helpful having an outdoor environment that does not separate that room of 22 children to, say, the room next door with another 12, 14, 16 children. Then you combined outside, you have 30 or more children running around the 1 yard, fighting over toys, getting in each other's way. And that actually brings me to another thing I learned about supervision and ratios. The system's idea of educated to child ratios is absurd. I'm sure that every educator watching this, maybe even directors, can agree. There's a big difference between having a 1 to 5 educated to child ratio and you only have those 5 children and there's no other children around, compared to a 1 to 11 ratio. I don't feel like the ages of the children really should make a difference in the amount of supervision, because you have 1 to 5 children, you still have to supervise those 5 children, and You have 1 to 11 children, you still have to supervise those 11 children. Accidents are going to happen, fights are going to happen. There's not really much of a difference. And so I found it was very difficult and very stressful to look after that many children. And there were accidents, and there were times where educators are expected to, well, you've got the right amount of staff, you've got your 1 to 11 ratio, so this should not have happened. But you've got to realize that, you're called away to something happening on the right of you, like a child in the bathroom or the toilet, and then something happens over here in the yard. And, sometimes we would get into trouble. Be like, well, why weren't you supervising? Well, we don't have eyes here, we don't have eyes here, we don't have eyes here. So, I feel like there needs to be more. That ratio is not going to really prevent accidents or really help support the children when they need it. I learned that forcing the children to share all of the toys at daycare, that created a lot of conflict, a lot of fighting, because when children are there and they're dropped off for the day and their parents are not around, they need a sense of security. They need a replacement for that parent. They need something or someone to help them feel safe, belonging, and they're not alone. So what I learned is that I actually started encouraging children in my room to bring a toy of theirs. Now, at first, there was a lot of resistance around this because a lot of childcare centres have this rule. You don't bring new toys. If you bring your own toys, they get confiscated till the end of the day. Well, I actually tried a different approach that really worked for me and really worked for the children in my room. And it took a little bit of time for adjustment because you have to take into account, well, what toys are they going to bring? If they're very valuable and they absolutely cannot get lost, don't bring them. Bring something a little better, like for that environment, something that it's okay if it gets lost. There's always a risk with children bringing their own belongings that it will get damaged or lost. So you accepting that and still letting them bring something of their own, like whether you're a parent or an educator. Just having the acknowledgement that, look, it's okay if something happens to it, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. I found that when children would bring something of their own, whether it was their own blanket, a comforter, like some children did still require a dummy, a plush toy like a teddy bear or something, or a monster truck, anything really, I would find that this helped with drop-offs, transitions, because they had their toy. It was like, okay, I can let go of mum or dad because I still have something that represents me and who I am. Often they would be happy to say goodbye and they would be so excited to share this with their friends, and I can belong now because I have something. Especially when many of the children brought their own, they would sort of compare and they'd look at each other with this sense of relating, like, yes, I belong here because I have a toy, and the other children would feel like I belong here because I have a toy and I can see that you have a toy. And they would often get together and form friendships, and they would play all day very happily. They would not fight. There was no need to fight over these toys because they understood, this is yours and who you are, and this is mine and who I am. Now, this is a topic for another video and I will go into that, but often that this would help the children feel that sense of control throughout their day to be able to cope better in their environment. They need help to self-regulate. They can't just switch off their feelings. They can't just say, look, the reality to a child who's just been dropped off and separated from a parent is that, their inner world is very undesirable for them. That, they have anxiety, they have panic, they feel lost, they don't know what to do, they feel desperate. It's almost terrifying, this sense of being out of control and what to do. So just like adults who need help with their feelings to get to the calm, They need to go through the experience. So what usually happens, like in our childhoods, is we have an experience and we are made to switch that off, or sometimes it's so traumatic that we switch it off, we suppress it, and we create a version of ourselves that can cope. This can be very life-saving. This is not a bad thing that we do. But what happens is that painful experience, it stays suppressed and it doesn't leave. It stays there throughout our life, and it does come out eventually in unhealthy ways. So what I learned about how other educators would do things is that they would often distract the child away. Oh, come on, let's go do this thing. Or they would take them outside away and shut the door. Try to talk to them about why it's okay, how they're gonna be okay. Mummy will be back. Mummy's just gone to work, she'll be back. The reality is the children don't want to hear this. That does not help. They don't want to hear how they need to feel better. They want to hear that, oh my goodness, this is an awful thing that you are going through, and it is completely understandable. You have a right to feel this way, and you don't want to be here. No, you want mum to come back. I want you to go home too. I don't want you to be here either if it makes you upset. I want to go home too. I don't like it here either. Children want to hear that someone's relating to them and someone really understands what their reality is like for them. If that means them crying for 30 minutes straight, that's what they need to do, because once they process those feelings, they're naturally going to self-regulate, because they haven't had to be in resistance to the feelings. They've been allowed to feel them, get them out, and that is the healthy way of helping a child self-regulate, which I will go into in another video on how to support easy transitions, because I developed strategies for this that really worked, and I will share more about this. They do really well with even sort of the ages 3 and 4, ages that we might still believe that children aren't capable of understanding their own needs and what's right for their bodies. They actually are. So I learned that children need to be able to choose when they're hungry, when they're tired, when they need to go to the toilet. Now, I couldn't always do this because everything's timed, everything's recorded in a public childcare centre, everything's monitored, there are time frames, there are schedules. Now, while this can be good and helpful in many ways, it can also really mess with a child's internal guidance system and sense of self-regulation. If a child's constantly being told what to do and how to do it, they don't develop their own self-regulating skills. They don't learn how to become in tuned with their body clock, their hunger, their thirst, their toileting, because they are working on a schedule that's not theirs. I learned how to sort of adapt and blend, how to follow these regulations while honouring and respecting the children's needs and boundaries. So children do need boundaries. They need to be allowed to say no. I don't want to go to sleep. No, I'm not hungry. Now, there are ways to work around these things, which I will share in specific videos about all of these things. But they do need to be allowed to have some choice about when they eat and when they sleep, because without that, there's going to be a lot of resistance and behaviour issues in them. I feel like a lot of bad behaviours that we see in children in childcare is associated to constantly being told what to do and when to do it, and it's overload for their little systems, and they don't know how to respond other than to put up a boundary and fight back and try to gain some of that self-control back. Often I would find that these things were scheduled in advance, very limited, and they were very rare. Whereas I would incorporate it into like a daily thing. They come alive when they are engaging with the natural elements, with dirt and mud and water and sand. not having all those preconceived ideas about, they're going to get dirty and then, then we have to clean up and stuff. These are the activities that the children were choosing and asking and wanting to do on a daily basis. And seeing that this made them feel happy and what they love helped me to learn that this kind of sensory play is crucial in a part of a child's learning program. That brings me to my next topic. This is going to come as a shock to some of you who really follow those learning cycles and believe in them and believe they work. I'm not coming from a perspective like I am an early childhood educator. I do have to do learning cycles. Fortunately for me though, I am finding ways that honour how I believe children learn, and I can still do these learning cycles as part of who I am and as organically as possible. But planning ahead for the future, for what children are going to want to do or need to learn, does not work. I actually tried to do this. Often I would feel the pressure of having to document and record what children are learning and then plan something for them, only to find that the next week they would scream, "No, I don't want to do it," and then I would have no evidence, nothing to go by. I would reschedule and reprogram for weeks and weeks, and I would find that they just did not want to do it. This is because children learn in the present moment. There is nothing but the present moment. So if you think about the future, if you can even conceive of tomorrow or next week, it doesn't exist. How can it exist if it hasn't happened? Yes, learning cycles can help if you can see that a child has a specific interest and talent and they want to do that all the time. But trying to create nothing out of something, like something that hasn't happened yet, it's not always going to work, because children are spontaneous creatures. Like, they live for the present moment. They don't live in a future in their head that's created through the mind. That they are following their moment-to-moment breadcrumb trail of excitement, what brings them joy in the moment. Another shocking thing that is frowned upon in the childcare industry, it was frowned upon on me as a group leader. I had the TV taken from me at one point because it was thought that I was using it as a babysitting tool, when in fact, when you have a room of 22 children who can't rest, who can't sit still, not because they have ADHD or autism or some behaviour problem that needs to be looked into, but because they are in a room of 22 children with all that sensory overload and information feeding off of that, there's no calm. If you want to calm a child, you need to calm the room. I did this through putting on educational programs, soft music, stories, cartoons at times that were child-friendly and funny, because I would find that having a group of children that were grown out of naps and were too old to sleep, they still needed a bed, they still wanted a bed, they still needed downtime, rest, they needed to lower their heart rates, their breathing, they needed to recharge for the afternoon, and putting something on for them to watch, I didn't feel that it was a distraction. I didn't feel that it was brainwashing them in any way. It allowed them to sit, have some separation from their friends, to have some focus and an enjoyment. The things they were watching, they enjoyed it. And they love music. Children love music. So even having a musical interactive, or maybe not interactive until after rest time, but something that they could listen to, and it was calming and relaxing, and it would help them for long periods, and what I mean is for at least 30 minutes to sit still and calm. And I would find that their behaviors settled, and when they were ready to recharge, they had some kind of rest. So I didn't have the TV on all day. I don't believe that it should be on all day. I believe that long periods of screen time isn't helpful, but some period of time where they can just stop and rest and be quiet, and they don't know how to self-regulate yet at that age, so they need help. We were often told to provide activities and quiet activities. This was still very stimulating for their brains. They were bored. They had activities. When you're a lead educator, you are planning activities all day long, and if you are seen as not organizing and planning, that can be seen as being incompetent and not doing your job, when in fact the children crave some time to just relax and do their own thing and not be directed constantly every minute of the day. Also, it gives educators a time out to sit still and be quiet and not have that constant noise and overload on their nervous system. So screen time can be very beneficial for helping children to regulate for a period of time throughout the day. This is a longer video because there was a lot I wanted to cover. I will make shorter videos covering each of these points in greater detail. I just want to say thank you for whoever is watching this. I really appreciate you. And if there's anything else that you want to know or that you want me to talk about, I'd be very happy to make a video about that. If you can just comment in the comments if you want to know more, or if there is a specific one of these topics that you'd like me to begin with talking about, I would be happy to hear from you. I hope you're enjoying your holiday, and I will see you again soon. Bye.